The March 21st, 2026 System Expansion Committee meeting is called to order. Good afternoon. I am System Expansion Committee Chair Angela Burney. I want to welcome everyone attending the meeting, both in person and via Zoom. For committee members joining through Zoom, please turn on your camera and state your name prior to making any comments or asking any questions so the public and your fellow committee members know who is speaking. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Yeah, Stephanie Fain.
Here.
Board Member Fain is present. Cassie Franklin.
Here.
Board Member Franklin is present. Ryan Mello. Kim Roscoe.
Here.
Board Member Roscoe is present. Dave Summers.
Here.
Board Member Summers is present. Dan Strauss.
Here.
Board Member Strauss is present. Katie Wilson.
Here.
Board Member Wilson is present. Gurmai Zahalai.
Present.
Board Member Zahalai is present. And Angela Burney.
Here.
And Chair Burney, we do have a quorum of the committee at this time.
Great, thank you so much. We next, as a reminder, members, the monthly MATOC task order report is included in our materials. Is there anything else? Anyone have any questions on it? Anything else we'd like to cover on that? See nothing. Next, we will hear the CEO report from CEO Dale Constantine.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. As we get closer to the Cross Lake Connection opening on March 28th, I'd like to update members of this committee on what to expect that day. In addition to the 9 a.m. speaking program and the ribbon cutting at Sam Smith Park near Judkins Park Station, we are also partnering with the Northwest African American Museum in hosting a community-focused celebration next to the station. People can look forward to live music and performances, food trucks, kids' activities, and more. And to help get people to the event, we'll be running shuttles from the Mount Baker and South Bellevue stations every 15 minutes, starting at 7 a.m. Then, starting at around 10, people can simply jump on the train for the trip back. Now, after the trains start running, there will be more food, live performances, and station activations throughout the alignment at Linwood City Center and Symphony Station, at Mercer Island, Bellevue Downtown, and the Spring District, at Redmond Technology, and at the Marymore Village Station. And for those interested in taking it all in, I encourage playing our Discover Stamp Win game. Anyone who submits a completed game ticket will have a chance to win a prize. What kind of prizes? Well, of course, we have our new Cross Lake swag, like this super cool warm-up jacket, which you'll be able to get. Here we go. But also, we'll have an Xbox, plane tickets, courtesy of Alaska Airlines, and as they say, much, much more. So thank you to Alaska, to Microsoft, to the Mercer Island Chamber of Commerce that is leaning all into this opening, and many other generous partners for making this possible. There are many more details about what will be happening on opening day at soundtransit.org/Cross Lake, and we all look forward to seeing you there. Now, because today is the last day of the legislative session, I'd like to give a brief update. Senate Bill 6309, the permitting reform bill we advocated for, made it through both chambers and is now headed to the governor's desk for signature. As I shared last week with members of the executive committee, the targeted reforms in that legislation will allow us to carry out necessary project steps like property acquisition, alongside of applying for permit approval. So rather than having to do these things sequentially or serially, we will be able to undertake some of these steps in parallel. That saves time, and when we save time, we save money. So we're very pleased with that outcome. Other legislation we prioritized this session did not make it across the finish line, and there were some other legislative changes that will impact our work moving forward. We'll have an opportunity to discuss those as the days and weeks unfold. But for now, Madam Chair, that is my report. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chair. Are there any questions for our CEO? Seeing none, we'll now turn to public comment. System Expansion Committee welcomes public comment as an important part of the public process. Comments are received and considered by the committee in its deliberations. Board members have received written public comments submitted before the meeting. I will now ask Katie to read names and summaries for those comments.
Yes, the board received written public comments from Lisa Bogardus on behalf of the Seattle Building Trades, supporting the continued progress on the West Seattle Link Extension project, from Maya Widarski, Tiffany Malik, Elizabeth Grant, Christina Stempson, Ken Brunel, Karthik Kashnath, Kit McCormick, Master Builders Association of King and Snohomish Counties, Laura Morn, Shannon Rebresk, Steve Raymond, Robin Bucher, Peter Rojas, and an unnamed commenter expressing support to progress the light rail to Issaquah or provide full tax refunds if the extension were to be eliminated. From Ron Warman and an unnamed commenter opposing the Issaquah light rail extension, noting it's a waste of taxpayer money. From Heather Phil requesting a 90-day review of the Ballard Link Extension DEIS and asking for the International District/Chinatown Station to be corrected to Chinatown-International District Station. From Brian Chow asking the board to demonstrate that equity and fiscal responsibility could guide the Ballard Link Extension project by choosing the Jackson Hub alternative and asking for the International District/Chinatown Station to be named the Chinatown-International District Station. From Betty Lau asking the board to improve community engagement by collaborating with the Chinatown International District Vision Advisory Group, the Citizens Accessibility Advisory Committee, and provide regional available materials in the top 7 languages, analyze alternatives of economic and social impact set forth by NEPA, and provide a 90-day comment period. From Brian Ask, supporting a progressive design build delivery method to address the agency's need for competing future expansion projects on a limited budget, while balancing fund availability and encouraging the agency to fully and carefully implement the Design Build Institute of America's best practices for progressive design build and leverage local expertise of builders and designers. And finally, from John Niles, voicing the board's decisions for light rail expansion should be influenced by the original light rail spine stations and highlighting the projected ridership levels for Linwood and Federal Way stations have not been met.
Thank you, Katie. Do we have people signed up for comment today?
Yes, we have 6 people signed up for in-person public comment and 2 people signed up for virtual public comment.
Wonderful. Before we take these comments, I want to review our ground rules for in-person and virtual public comments. Each commenter will have 2 minutes. All comments must be germane to the agenda items or items within the committee's purview. Speakers should not make introductory statements or derogatory remarks, profanity, or personal attacks not germane to an agenda item, statements related to a political campaign, or statements for or against a candidate or ballot measure. Speakers should also not engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of this meeting, including conduct that is not germane to the committee's agenda or work. This is the only warning speakers will receive if these rules are not followed. I will ask that the microphone be turned off. I appreciate your adherence to these rules. We will now take comment from people here in the Ruth Fisher boardroom.
I'll call the first 3 people who signed up for comment: Billy Hetherington, Katie Garrow, and Andrea Ornelas. Please come forward. And when you give your public comment, please make sure that the green light is on. If not, please press the button that says push.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Bernie and members of the committee. My name is Billy Hetherington, Political Director for Labor's Local 242 and a member of the Seattle Building Trades. First, I'd like to say that I'm excited to see under item 7 that the South Operations and Maintenance Yard is moving forward. That's a critical piece in the system expansion, and great to see the progress is continuing on that. As a former resident of West Seattle in the early 2000s, it's honestly remarkable to me to see how much that community has grown over the past 20 years. The demand for reliable transit connections between West Seattle and the rest of the system has only increased. That's why the work you're doing today on item 8, the West Seattle Link Extension Work Plan, is so important. I wanted to acknowledge and thank the board for approving the funding for the design work on this portion of the Sound Transit build-out. That decision keeps the project moving forward, and it sends a clear signal to the region that the region remains committed to delivering the system voters approved. But I'd also like to emphasize we can't stop now. We need to keep this momentum going across the region. We've seen what happens when projects stall or get delayed. Cost escalates, uncertainty grows, and the timeline for delivering infrastructure stretches out even further. Time and time again, we've learned that the cheapest time to build is now, as Dow mentioned earlier. The good news is that we are ready to build. We have an abundance of highly skilled, trained members of the building trades ready to go on projects like these. Our unions continue to invest heavily in workforce development and training infrastructure to meet the demand. At Labor's Local 242, for example, our membership recently invested in a new training facility next to the hall in Des Moines to ensure that the next generation of workers is prepared to deliver projects like the West Seattle extension. I also want to thank all the members of the committee and staff who have put in so much time and work to get us to this point. The analysis you'll hear later today, today's meeting helps illustrate the cost savings and long-term value of continuing to move forward on this project. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Katie Garrow, and I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer for MLK Labor AFL-CIO. On behalf of the 220,000 unionized workers in King County and our 150 affiliate unions, I want to thank the Sound Transit Board for approving funding for the design work on West Seattle. I also want to ask you to continue that work ahead. I'm here for an obvious reason. Working people need transportation to be able to get to work and to live our lives. We need reliable options. We need high quality options. But Sound Transit also offers a secondary exponential economic development opportunity for people who build and operate this system. As you already heard from Billy, and I'm sure you'll hear from Andrea about the ways that this offers training opportunities for people in the construction industry and high quality jobs for people in operations who might otherwise have barriers to high quality unionized employment. If the next steps on the West Seattle project are delayed, we risk losing critical momentum that puts this promise in jeopardy. On the other hand, approving the West Seattle design next steps will enable us to retain our highly skilled workforce and to put us closer to putting shovels in the ground. We know costs have gone up. Working people have felt the rise of inflation very acutely. But as all of you have already said and acknowledged, moving forward today, without every day that we delay this project, costs will simply increase. They will not get any cheaper. So on behalf of the 13,077 unionized voters who reside in West Seattle, we urge you to move forward with the West Seattle project without delay. We are counting on you, our leaders, to hold a long-term vision for our region to make this the best place to live, work, and play.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the System Expansion Committee. My name is Andrea Ornelas. I'm here today representing more than 6,000 plus members of LiUNA Local 242. I want to start by thanking Sound Transit Board for moving forward with the West Seattle project with the design funding last year and recognizing the Sound Transit staff whose thoughtful work has already produced real results. As someone who represents workers who built the infrastructure that keeps the region moving, I want to emphasize how important it is to keep this progress going by approving the next steps and the design work without delay. Projects like the West Seattle Link don't just expand transit, they create family-wage union careers, training opportunities for the next generation of skilled trades workers, the economy stability for communities across the region. The workforce is ready to deliver this project. We have many, many workers out of work. We have pre-apprentices that do not have a job to get to when they are done with their training. The workforce is ready to deliver this project. We need to keep this moving forward and help ensure that the generational project stays on track and brings us closer to construction. I want to thank you all for your time and for your consideration moving this forward. Thank you.
The next three speakers are Jack Wisner, followed by Betty Lau and Mary Kate Ryan.
You need to turn on your mic, please, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jack Wisner. I live in the Ballard section of the North King County subarea. I wanted to comment on item 8, and if the chair would indulge me, make a comment on the 2026 service implementation plan with regard to Issaquah. Issaquah is mentioned in the written comments. My two item 8 comments are as follows. I hope the staff can include a minimum operating expense of a link service from and to the South Forest Street base only. This would have the maximum cost savings. And Seattle has already opened the South Lander Street overcrossing in summer of 2020. So it would be possible for SDOT and Metro to reconfigure their service to meet Link at the Lander Street station. A second comment on slide 9, you can see that in the case of the 35th Avenue Southwest station being deleted, they will have a different alignment for the tunnel. Perhaps it should study going a little bit further west and be north-south under California Avenue Southwest to better serve the business district and align, if you do have a West Seattle line, to extend it further south. My comment about Issaquah is that the management and planning recommendation on the SIP calls for Issaquah to be served by Route 556. And according to the printed timetables of routes 554 and the existing metro routes, that would result in a service from Issaquah to the rest of the region 10 minutes slower than using the 554 alignment. In the original ridership modeling, Route 554 was oriented to Mercer Island. Under the current proposal, Route 554 would be deleted. We'd be better off orienting Issaquah service to Mercer Island. It uses the existing Sound Move infrastructure
Sir, you
and the
can keep this up.
washout HOV
Thank
lane.
you.
Oh. Hi, I'm Betty Lau, co-founder of Transit Equity for All and board member of the Zhonghua Benevolent Association. It's been 3 years since an earlier board voted to make north and south of CID the preferred alternatives. South of CID has been rebranded Dearborn Street, even though the platform is at 6th and Royal Brougham. North of CID has been rebranded Midtown, even though it's not in Midtown. These two stations bypass the CID, even though the published purpose and need for light rail is to provide accessibility, connectivity, and opportunities to impacted communities of color. One would expect these preferred alternatives to be superior to the voter-approved and community-chosen 4th Avenue Transit Hub at Union Station, but they are not. Challenges exist in making north and south of CID fulfill promises of racial, social, and economic justice for the bypass CID communities of color. So here are improvements for meaningful community engagement. Collaborate with the CID Vision Advisory Group. It's in your own community engagement adoption. Collaborate with the Citizens Accessibility Advisory Committee. Language access, provide materials in the top 7 languages and make them available throughout the region. It's in your language assistance plan. Provide a 90-day comment period. Finally, conduct a study of north and south of CID stations for economic, social, and equity impacts to the CID. Thank you.
Afternoon, System Expansion Committee. I'm Mary Kate Ryan. I'm the Preservation Planner for Historic South Downtown. We're a state-created entity representing the interests of Pioneer Square and Chinatown International District. Today, we're specifically responding to the update in the January System Expansion Monthly Status Report. First of all, thank you to staff for these reports. They are incredibly helpful. We read that Sound Transit is advancing design work on enabling infrastructure to support joint development opportunities at Westlake, Denny, Ballard, Midtown, CID Dearborn, and Alaska Junction stations. Except for Alaska Junction, these are all station areas in the Ballard Link extension. We remain concerned that design work on the preferred alternative station area locations in Ballard Lake Extension is proceeding despite the delay of the new DEIS. Some of these locations were not studied in the original WSBLE DEIS, so we haven't had informed community input on the analyses of these sites yet. We worry that this additional design work will lead to a sunk cost fallacy, that the board will be told that too much work has been done to change course, and community input will be logged as heard rather than meaningfully acted on and incorporated into the design of a system that is expected to serve us. Let us really understand the project so that we understand the trade-offs and hard decisions we're making. We understand the precarious balancing act Sound Transit is engaged in, moving our extraordinarily important regional transportation projects forward while waiting out federal delays. We ask that you don't move so far that community public comments can no longer meaningfully influence the project's designs and outcomes. And we'd still prefer 90 days to comment, but if we get 60, we'll work with 60.
And that is everyone who signed up for in-person comment. We do have 2 people also signed up for virtual public comment.
Thank you, Katie. Now we will turn to comment via Zoom, our virtual meeting platform. I ask that when your name is called, please identify yourself using the raise hand function in Zoom so the staff can send a prompt to unmute. If you're joining the meeting by telephone, press *9 on your phone so you can be identified. You will be instructed how to unmute yourself in order to give your comment. Katie, please call the first commenter.
The first commenter is Jeremy Fontaine. Please accept the notice to unmute your microphone. Please go ahead.
Hey there, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. All right. I've never done this before, so this is my first time doing a public comment of any kind. So hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy. I'm just a normal dude who lives in West Seattle. I live on South Delridge, so not really close to where the stations are going to be. However, I just wanted to call in and express my super passionate support for this station. I primarily move around the city by bike or bus whenever I can. I do drive when I need to, but ultimately, I understand the value of good transit. And while the West Seattle Link extension won't necessarily be close to my home, it still adds a huge amount of accessibility to me and my partner who live here, and we both can bike to a station or get around. One thing I want to call out, just kind of reiterate for anyone who maybe doesn't have this experience living in West Seattle 3, 4, 5 years ago, I don't know, it feels like forever, the West Seattle Bridge was broken. We all felt the impact of that. So having redundancy and options to get off the peninsula, move around the city, get to other neighborhoods is extremely important. Not being constrained to cars and bridges is another, or a single bridge rather, is another factor. The First Ave Bridge right now is down. I just rode my bike down to Georgetown to get teriyaki. It took a little longer than I expected, but it was nice having the option to not have to deal with that as much if I were driving. So I just want to stress my support and just how important it is that we keep this on track. We keep funding for the design phase that's coming up next. And I also just want to throw in there, I wish we could keep the Avalon station. I think it's really important to have it there. We're looking at a lot of density and growth here in West Seattle. I know that if we can't, I at least hope that we can maybe work towards expediting this process. I know that, we recently passed that bill. It's going to help a lot with that. But ultimately, the faster we make decisions, the faster we fund, the faster we build, the cheaper it's going to get. And that's the biggest cost savings I think we can get. So thanks for the 2 minutes, everyone.
And the last person who signed up for virtual public comment is Ben Smith. Please accept the notice to unmute your microphone. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great, thanks. My name is Ben Smith. I am a West Seattle resident in the Puget Ridge neighborhood. I think we need to keep going and build the light rail as fast as we can in West Seattle. For example, I'm actually personally fine with cutting the Avalon station if that kind of thing saves us costs and gets it going, especially if it helps save the West Seattle Health Club, which I see is a huge, important community institution for connection across ages and difference and health and safety, teaching our kids to swim there. But for context here, I'm an environmentalist for over 20 years. I've worked in the movement. I was formerly the Senior Strategic Partnerships Advisor at Greenpeace USA, and I know from that experience that transit is a huge climate and equity solution. And was clapping along, agreeing with the previous speakers. It's also a huge opportunity for creating tons of new high-quality union jobs. Economic development like that is going to benefit our whole society, for me and my family, even if I don't work in the trades. So appreciate those speakers. And, I just wanted to say the community events in Seattle have been great. A special appreciation. Councilmember Mosqueda and her staff have been amazing. And so I look forward to the next one. A bunch of my neighbors are watching this closely. I happen to live up on the 125 route. If there's anyone out there who can add more buses to the 125 so we can get to the light rail, that would be amazing. But mostly just want to support you all, keep it moving, build it with as few delays as possible. And we're going to look forward to the extended service in West Seattle and all the resulting benefits. Thank you for your time.
And Chair Bernie, that's everyone who signed up for today's public comment.
All right, thank you so much. There are 3 business items on the agenda today, 1 for committee final action and 2 for recommendation to the board. I will call on one staff presenter and ask that you identify yourself and any other presenters. If there are multiple presenters on one topic, I will ask that you also introduce yourself when you begin your section of the presentation so the committee and the public know who's speaking. For committee final action, we have the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 12th, 2026 System Expansion Committee meeting?
This is Roscoe. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have Michael Morgan, Capital Delivery Executive Director, to begin the staff presentation for a progressive design build contract for the Operations and Maintenance Facility South project and an associated budget amendment. He will introduce any additional presenters. Welcome.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chair Bernie and members of the committee. My name is Michael Morgan, and I'm an Executive Director for Capital Delivery. With me today, I'm joined by Asa Agus, our Executive Project Director for OMF South, as well as Huey Newsome, our Chief Financial Officer. Go to the next slide. So we're here today to speak to approval for 2 things. First is the motion award PDB contract to Hoffman Construction, and the second is a resolution to increase the authorized budget allocation for this project. We're very excited to be here today because this is the kickoff of the SD3 program, the work that we need to do to get the new vehicle fleet going and looking ahead to all the link extensions. So go to the next slide, please. So just as a reminder, this is the system that we have today. So there is an OMF Central today, there is an OMF East, we're adding an OMF South to the program. We're treating these as a network of facilities that we can move the vehicles throughout the network, maintain them anywhere, use them anywhere. So that's the approach. And so it's not necessarily for one specific region, but it's for the network as a whole. Doing it as a network approach allows us to obtain some efficiencies and some opportunities for cost savings, which I'll talk about a little bit later. One of the big things about this project, and we heard it from a speaker already, is 4 million construction hours of work in the region, as well as 600 living wage jobs. So this is a big project for the region, and we're pretty excited to get it going. So go into the details of the specific project. So critically, there is a connecting test track. So we're going to extend the track from Federal Way South 1.5 miles to the new facility. We're also going to include a test track for testing the new vehicle fleet and testing existing vehicles. And so this is a big tool that we will add to the system as part of improving resiliency, as part of adding to the toolkit of maintenance opportunities. We're also going to, and I'll show you on the next slide a little bit, provide a storage facility, a maintenance facility, and a starting point for all our operations staff. Also on the next slide, I'll show you a bit of a close-up of that facility at the south. So this is just a diagram. It will change over time as we step through the design, but essentially we have storage here for 72 vehicles. These are the longer SD3 vehicles that we will maintain at this facility. We also have a maintenance away building. We have a heavy maintenance and a light maintenance facility. And all of our operators for starting in this region will start here, bring trains into service, and bring them out of service back to this location. So a really important addition to the overall network. Just in terms of where we are in process, we've already gone through the environmental approvals. We have the record of decision. We spent the last year in procurement, and so we're here today to seek your approval for the award of a contract to Hoffman. As we kind of look ahead, we're going to be spending a lot of time on the final design, working with our partners in the industry as well as Sound Transit Operations, King County Rail to really design a facility that meets everyone's needs. Let's go to the next slide, please. Just as a starting point, I did want to take a second and point out that this is a progressive design delivery method. So this is a new model that's focused on collaboration and allows us to advance cost savings opportunities and innovation while we advance the final design. This does represent one of the TAG recommendations, and so we're very excited to be able to bring it to you today and put it into practice. So go to the next slide. Many of you, Chair Burney, I know that Redmond uses progressive design build, a very common practice in the marketplace. A lot of adoption by industry. A lot of people are moving from design build to progressive design build. So I know the industry is going to be very excited about seeing how we succeed with this project. Let's go to the next slide. Just a little bit of details that I'll share with you today about PDB. The key thing for us is that it's a qualifications-based process to select the team. So we're very excited about the team. We had two very good teams who submitted at the end of the day, and we're very excited about the team that we've chosen. Hoffman, supported by Arup, a number of local firms. The first time we've used Miller Hull, as I understand it, with Sound Transit, so a local architecture firm. So a lot of firms involved in the project. We're pretty excited about that. It's a design to budget approach. We're going to update the budget progressively as we advance the design so that there are no surprises once the final design is done. And then there are, some off-ramp options. If we get to a point where we are not happy with the price, there is the opportunity off-ramp. Obviously, that's not our intention. We want to take this team to the finish line. The dial on the right covers some of the specific inputs that we've talked about previously with cost opportunities, looking at market conditions, looking at risk transfer. With this progressive design build model, we're looking to tackle each of those things as much as possible. Obviously, it doesn't deal with right of way or escalation per se, but it does deal with some of the other recommendations that we've heard from industry and from the TAG. One of the questions that we received early on was about cost savings opportunities and this idea of we're applying levers 1, 2, 3, and 4 to all of our link projects. For the OMF, it's really about levers 1 and 2. So the first example on the left is just about optimizing through design. So there's no discussion with our other partners at Sound Transit. It's really just how can we design a system or a site that minimizes the impact. And so the example here is we adjusted the roadway to avoid some wetlands in order to save costs, to save the need for mitigation. So that was a very good success story. The second one, the one on the right, is really this idea of a network model. How can we optimize the use of specialized equipment, assignment of people, assignment of resources throughout the network? And so this is something that we're exploring now. This is a lever 2 because it requires us to engage with our partners within the agency and within King County Rail to ensure that we deliver something that's workable for them. Just in terms of where we are in process, so we've gone through the preliminary engineering. We're here today to seek your approval for this progressive design build contract. We're also seeking funding to start some final design, site preparation, roadworks, long lead procurements. There's a number of pieces of specialized equipment required for the facility that will really take us a long time to order, and we want to place those orders sooner rather than later. So at the end of the project, we don't have any issues there. So that's today, and we will come back later in the process to seek your approval for the final cost for the overall construction project. Go to slide 12, please. So just as kind of where we are at this moment in time, we currently have $525 million authorized for various components of the project. A lot of that is made up of right-of-way acquisition, which is some spent to date, but it's also a look ahead to the remainder of the project. We also have funding for construction services oversight through to the end of the project. So all of those things make up the current authorization. In terms of the ask today, we're looking for funding for the final design, looking for funding for the pre-construction services that I spoke about, and then there's a small amount of contingency associated with that. Again, we'll be back to ask for your approval on the final amount, but this total amount that we have today, $875, is well within the $2 billion budget that we have for the project. And so with that, I'm happy to take questions, but just just do want to say that we are very excited. You see some excitement in the room just about starting the SD3 and getting going with this next project.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for our team today on these two items? You don't have any questions for them in particular? Okay.
Just
And-
comments.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Anyone online? No? All right. Thank you all very much. Is there a motion to make sure I do all the right things? Is there a motion to, oh, Katie, read into the record. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd be
Getting
happy
used to this.
Motion number M 2026-11 is the motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to, one, execute a progressive design build contract with Hoffman Construction Company of Washington for all phases of design and construction of the operations and maintenance facility South Buildings and Yard, and to exercise the option to include all phases of the OMF South Main Line and test track, and to advance certain individual early work construction packages as needed. And two, to authorize funding for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of OMF South Buildings and Yard and the Main Line and test track, and for amounts for early works packages under the contract for a total authorized contract in the amount of not to exceed $318,205,477, with an approximately 10% contingency of $31,794,523, totaling $350 million, contingent upon adoption of resolution number R 2026-05.
Thank you, Katie. Is there a motion to forward motion number M 2026-11 to the board with a due pass recommendation?
This is Roscoe. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Board Member Roscoe.
I just am happy to make some comments. I really appreciate Michael Morgan's quote of, "It's going to be great seeing how we succeed with this type of a construction process." When I joined Sound Transit as a board member, this was one of the first tours that I went on with agency staff around siting this OMF South. I just want to commend staff and the board for moving this through the process. If anyone eats Elenos yogurt, that is a factory that was not acquired for OMF South. There is also a passionately owned owner-occupied storage unit business in that area, which was preserved. And the property acquisition was, as I understand it, mostly one property acquired through a megachurch organization. I know there's been a lot of negotiations with the city of Federal Way, and those continue. I know that this is an OMF South for the system, but as a Pierce board member, I really see it as just one step closer to the gateway of getting light rail onto the Puyallup Tribe of Indians Reservation and into Pierce County. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Member. Board Member Fang.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank staff for the several pre-briefings on this so that I could ask a lot of questions, and for all the work that you've done to proceed with this investment in South King County. I'm pleased that this is within budget and we are just asking for the allocation so that we can continue this work. And I'm really excited about the number of jobs that this will bring to not only the region, but to South King County and Federal Way and Fife and Pierce County. And I also wanted to just give a quick thank you to my colleague, Board Member Von Reichbauer, who has been a big advocate for this project and the economic activity that's going to drive for us down in South King County. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, this is a voice vote to forward motion number M 2026-11 to the board with a due pass recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I'm now going to turn to the resolution on our agenda, Resolution R 2026-05. We heard information about this action in the previous presentation. Do any board members have additional questions on this budget amendment? See none. Katie, could you read this into the record?
Resolution number R 2026-05 is a resolution of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority amending the adopted 2026 budget to progress the Operations and Maintenance Facility South project by increasing the authorized project allocation by $350 million from $524,729,393 to $874,729,393. And B, increasing the adopted 2026 annual project budget by $32 million from $175,471,265 to $207,471,265.
Is there a motion to forward Resolution R 2026-05 to the board with a due pass recommendation?
This is Roscoe. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, this is also a voice vote to forward resolution number R 2026-05 to the board with a due pass recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion carries unanimously again. Thank you all very much. In my haste, thank you all. In my haste, I missed the System Expansion Monthly Status Report update from Terry Mestis, our Capital Delivery Deputy CEO. Her presentation. I apologize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good afternoon, members of the committee. I'm happy to provide the overview of our monthly report. If we could go to the next slide, please. We'll go over the programmatic updates and project updates for both projects in planning and design and projects in construction. Let's go to the next slide, please. Just bringing back this legend here on the icons that you'll be seeing, which show our performance on the next few slides. Let's go to the next slide, please. Great news to report this month on prompt payment. Our average time of paying is 27 days for this period, which exceeds our target goal. And on safety, we have 0 recordable incidents this month. So really great performance in both of those areas. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this table is for our projects in planning and design. No major changes here. I just will note that we heard just now on our OMF facility and excited to see that moving forward. I did want to note that we have been working very closely with the Design Build Institute of America, and we have lots of experts on board, certainly regionally, to help us deliver this project successfully. And I'll also note that on our bus rapid transit, there towards the bottom of that table, that we just have that one project left. So all of the STRIDE projects will be in construction here very shortly, and this one is moving along very successfully. Let's go to the next slide, please. This table is for our projects in construction. As CEO Constantine said, we're moving very well towards our March 28th date for the Cross Lake opening. Everything is looking very positive there. And I'll also just note towards the bottom of the table that growing list under our bus rapid transit STRIDE. You see that 4%, that's going to grow here over time, and we're going to see some really great activity and some more groundbreakings coming our way. With that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for our Deputy CEO? Don't see any. I just want to say congratulations on STRIDE. That's really exciting and look forward to seeing the progress. Thank you. Next, we have our reports to the committee. We have our West Seattle Link Extension Cost Work Plan update with Brad Owen, our Capital Delivery Executive Director, and his team to share with us what the latest is.
Good morning or afternoon, Chair Burney and members of the committee. My name is Brad Owen, Executive Director in Capital Delivery, and I am joined today by Jason Hampton, Commercial Director on the West Seattle Link Extension Project. Next slide. So today we're going to provide an update on cost savings work that has been ongoing for the West Seattle Link Extension Project. This is an informational briefing item only and no board action is requested today. Next slide, please. As a reminder, the West Seattle Link Extension Project was included in the ST3 plan approved by voters in 2016 and it provides fast and reliable light rail connections in the Soto, Delridge, and West Seattle neighborhoods with 4.1 miles of light rail service and up to 4 new stations. Next slide. So slide 4 grounds this work in the ongoing enterprise initiative process. Here you can see the 4 work streams of the enterprise initiative. And in the bottom left, you can see that the capital delivery aspect of this includes identifying and advancing programmatic and project level cost saving opportunities, inclusive of phasing and sequencing options. It's important to note today that the updated cost information you're going to see is reflected in the enterprise initiative work and development of capital delivery approaches that the board will discuss at next week's retreat and in the coming months. Next slide. Apologies, next slide. There you go. So cost-saving opportunities are being pursued for all capital projects, and you can see here a list of notable projects on the right that are included in the cost-saving opportunity work. These efforts stem from Motion 2024-59 and Motion 2025-36, which directed staff to develop programmatic and project-specific opportunities that improve the agency's ability to deliver ST3. As with all our work within capital delivery, we have held passenger experience and long-term operability and viability of the system paramount as we carry out this work. And the opportunities that we will present to you today will not only reduce our initial capital outlay on the project, but they have the added benefit of reducing our long-term operation and maintenance costs. Next slide, please. Here you can see the lever categorizations that are familiar to us now. There are 4 levers, with lever 1 being engineering or construction concepts that are project level opportunities. Some of these are already being implemented into the project design. Lever 2 opportunities require collaboration with other departments internal to Sound Transit, such as our Transit Operations Department, and we have a pretty robust process to achieve internal concurrence on these items. Lever 3 represents opportunities that require board approval or require coordination with external partners like the City of Seattle, Seattle City Light, King County Metro, and the Port of Seattle. And then lever 4 is a phasing approach, sometimes referred to as a minimum operable segment. The cost savings we're going to present to you today would be the result of incorporating opportunities with the application of levers 1, 2, and 3 only. Next slide. As a reminder about prior board actions, in the fall of 2024, the project received a record of decision from the Federal Transit Administration, and the board selected a project to be built alignment. These milestones advanced the project into final design, enabling staff to pursue specific cost-saving measures and engineering solutions not available during the environmental process. At the same time, staff provided a new cost estimate for the project utilizing a bottom-up estimating approach, which accurately reflects the cost of the project from a contractor's perspective and accounts for risk and contingency that are unique to the project. The rising cost of the project resulted in the board directing staff through the motions I previously mentioned to develop a work plan for the West Seattle project that would reduce both costs and effects to the community. Work began immediately on what is now called the cost-saving work plan. And in June of 25, the board continued to support these efforts on West Seattle by authorizing an engineering and design services contract and additional program management support services to support the work. The work being performed under these contracts further aided our ability to reduce cost on the project. And in November of 2025, the board extended the EDS contract services by 6 months and authorized us to pursue a systems engineering design services contract. Next slide. So what you see here is a historical representation of the cost that has been reported to the board, along with our progress in reducing those project costs. As a note, all these ranges have been updated to reflect 2025 dollars. So in the fall of 24, we reported updated cost estimates to the board equivalent to a range of 7.1 to 7.9 billion in today's dollars, accounting for inflation. As previously mentioned, this is when the board adopted Motion 2024-59 for the work plan. In the fall of 25, after having pursued cost-saving ideas for about a year and having the benefit of a design firm on board, we provided a progress report to the board that included an estimated cost reduction in the range of 6.2 to 6.5 billion. At that time, staff indicated we had identified additional opportunities that required time and engineering rigor to validate, with the potential to reduce further the cost estimate. Thanks to the board's support for the continued design work, we have validated many of the most promising cost-saving opportunities, and our design team has produced a new bottom-up cost estimate in the range of $4.9 to $5.3 billion. To validate this cost estimate, we utilized our Program Management Support Services contract to develop an independent cost verification, and we're pleased to report that the independent cost verification confirms the estimates that our design team has completed. Before I turn this over to Jason to describe some proposed refinements and specific opportunities, I want to thank the board members who joined us for the tour of West Seattle last week. Many of the items that you see Jason present here today will be familiar to you. So with that, Jason.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board chair and members of the committee, or committee chair and members of the committee. Again, it's Jason Hampton, commercial director for the West Seattle Link Extension Project. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this map really orients to what Brad said. What we'll be sharing today is the levers 1 through 3, which include consolidation of stations in the West Seattle Junction segment and distribute ridership from the Avalon station, which would not be included in this alignment, to Alaska Junction and Delridge. There's some direct cost associated with the no Avalon alignment, but as we went to work with our engineering design services, we started to recognize that there was really great potential for impact reduction and cost savings by eliminating the Avalon station and by looking at alternate alignments and reduction of impacts in West Seattle. So what we'll be describing today includes an alignment with no Avalon station. Here on the map, we show the alignment that was approved by the board and in the record of decision in a gray line, and in the blue line, which is above that on the map where north is up, we show the alignment with the cost-saving alternative. Next slide, please. So I'll start by describing some of the measures that are in lever 1. These are the items that would typically be included in a final design contract, where we're looking for opportunities to improve the project and also to reduce costs and impacts as we advance design. These include items such as optimizations at the SODO station. So really thinking about right-sizing that station, providing a great passenger experience, a good transfer experience, but only building what we need to do that. It includes optimizations and efficiencies in designing the guideway throughout the Duwamish segment. We have a lot of elevated guideway, so really thinking about right-sizing those foundations and building the right lengths of spans in the right locations. We have some optimizations at the Alaska Junction station that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in detail on an upcoming slide. But all of these lever 1 opportunities, as shown in the top left, lead to about $375 to $470 million in savings. Next slide, please. So the lever 2 opportunities, as Michael described earlier, these are areas we're really working with our service delivery and our operations departments at Sound Transit to make sure that these work for the system. In some cases, we're able to provide a better passenger experience compared to what we had, and a better operationality compared to what we had in the PE alignment because of that shifted station, or by eliminating the Avalon station. So in lever 2, the top left number, we show both 1 and 2. We have about 560 to 700 million when we pull these levers. And these levers include things like track work optimization, crossover configurations, really looking at the entire alignment from SODO to Alaska Junction and putting things in the right places to be able to operate it right. And then removal of the tail track. We've talked about this in previous committees. By removing that tail track and moving the crossover in front of the station, we're able to operate more efficiently and meet greater headways. And we're also able to reduce impacts in the Alaska Junction and thus reduce cost. I'm going to talk more about that tail track reduction as well. Next slide, please. So here we have the lever 3 opportunities. Of course, this includes an elimination of the Avalon station, where we would shift that ridership to Alaska Junction and Delridge. And there's some really great opportunities that can be unlocked by that, including looking at the alignment between Delridge Station and the tunnel portal, and potentially reducing impacts by moving that north. We're able to look at utility relocation optimization. So with the right size SOTO station, are there ways to minimize the work that we need to do on existing utilities in the SOTO neighborhood and reduce impacts? And then, of course, the No Avalon station is shown here. These levers, when combined with lever 1 and 2, realize potential savings, should they be pulled, of $2.1 to $2.6 billion, getting to that new number that Brad showed on the previous slide. The next 2 slides, we'll get into a little bit more detail on 2 of these with some specifics. Next slide, please. So one of the benefits of eliminating the Avalon station is we don't have all of the impacts on the southwest side of Avalon Way, as we have an at-grade guideway in the previous design leading to the Avalon station. And when doing so, we have a tunnel portal that's on the east side of the West Seattle Bridge connection to Fauntleroy. As we worked through this with the design team, we looked at opportunities to further reduce impacts. And by moving that tunnel portal to the east side of Avalon Way, we're then able to look at the alignment between Delridge Station and Avalon and look for opportunities to shift that north. We were able to achieve a design that works for the system and also avoids displacing the West Seattle Health Club and pool. One of the reasons that this alignment along Andover, which is the blue line there, wasn't available to us with the 4-station build is because we had really important social service providers on the west side of Avalon Way, and we needed to move the alignment south as shown in gray to avoid those. So that's one of the examples of eliminating Avalon, opening up other opportunities. In addition, we're able to move that alignment north and avoid an overwater crossing of Longfellow Creek, reducing impacts to the creek. Next slide, please. Here we have 2 maps showing the Alaska Junction. North is to the left here. The top is the previous alignment before the cost-saving measure levers, and the bottom is the cost-saving alternative. One of the other opportunities that was opened up by eliminating Avalon is we can change the tunnel geometry, and we can therefore shift the crossover to the north side of the station. That crossover is necessary for turnback operations and to operate a good system. One of the disadvantages of having the crossover to the south of the station on the top is it requires tail tracks to the south of the crossover. So the trains move from one side to the other, the operator gets out, and then they have to turn back. That's not a great operating condition, but it also leads to additional property acquisition and expensive, complicated construction. Furthermore, as we look at a right-size station there around Alaska Street, 41st, by not having to build all of that to the south, we're able to look at shifting the station a little bit further north out of the right-of-way, using the properties that we would need for the station construction. And because there's out of the right-of-way, we're able to move the station much more shallow by avoiding utilities. And so instead of having a station that's near 60, 65 feet, we're able to look at a station that's potentially around 35 feet, which makes a lot less requirement for the distance of vertical circulation and stairs and things underground. So all of these things are kind of adding up to those savings that we're showing and substantially reducing the impacts from the project. Just one more slide and I'll give it back to Brad. This is just a recap to remind folks that, in fall of 2024, we had a design, but by bringing on the EDS, the Jacobs team, to really look at some of these cost-saving measures and move the design forward, we're able to realize potential cost savings and impact reductions for the project. I'll hand it to Brad for next steps.
Next slide. So as I mentioned, we have informed the enterprise scenarios with the cost savings that you've seen here today. We are going to continue working. We have a few more months left in the contracts the board approved to continue working on the design for West Seattle. We also are continuing engagement and outreach with the communities in that area and obviously the elected officials in our board. There is potential board action required to eliminate the Avalon station. The board has acted to include Avalon, so we would need to have the board act to eliminate Avalon. And then depending on what happens with the enterprise initiative and the board's decisions to move forward, there would be actions in late Q2, early Q3 to advance the final design and right-of-way acquisition for West Seattle. With that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you both so much, and thank you to your teams and the people we've had helping us with this work. It's a much more, a better number to see for sure. Are there any comments or questions for our team up here today?
Zahalai.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Board Member Zahalai.
Thank you. I just wanted to say how remarkable I believe it is that the Sound Transit staff were able to accomplish what they did to bring down the projected costs from, 7 or 8 billion back down to 4 or 5 billion. That is just incredible. I think it's important to just say the creativity, the collaboration, the dedication it takes to find cost savings at that scale is truly remarkable. And I want to thank the staff for all of their hard work on this.
Thank you, Board Member. I see Board Member Franklin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's definitely very good to see cost savings that have been identified. Very impressive. Happy to see that. Definitely excited to see the savings applied to other systems. And so kind of wondering when we can expect to see similar opportunities applied to other projects in the system on that list, such as the Everett Link extension. And then my other question on top of that one is, what are the grant assumptions that are involved in funding this, and any risks that are with those assumptions on the funding plan for this?
So I can speak to both of those briefly. One of a unique aspect of the West Seattle project is that we are covered by a ROD. We have a record of decision, which allows us to move into final design and focus our efforts on one alignment, one very specific problem to solve, so to speak. We do have quite a few opportunities in the other projects that have been identified as a part of this cost-saving work plan. I believe in Q4 of last year, we presented on Everett, I think. So there are very similar cost savings for the other projects that have been identified. West Seattle is, like as I said, unique in the environmental process. We're out of it, and so we have a little bit more flexibility to explore our options. As far as the grant assumptions, so with the West Seattle project, we are using the same methodology for the West Seattle project that we use for all of the other alignments in the system. What we do is we go through a ratings exercise to determine how the project will rate within certain programs, specifically the CIG program that the FTA has. And so with recent guidance and recent changes to the CIG ratings process, we have rerun the numbers for West Seattle, and given some of the cost and given some of the changes that the federal government enacted, West Seattle was able to achieve a higher rating in the New Start's mock ratings process. And so we have incorporated, similar to how we would do Everett or Tacoma or Ballard, we've incorporated that information into our grant assumptions. So that's a high level of how we've done it and what we've done. Happy to follow up with some specifics on that. Our grants department has quite a bit of information and can get into the details.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And that would be great. And then just the last note, the tail track change seems really impressive, and I would love to see that, explored for all ends of the spine. So Everett and all the other ends because it seems like that is a cost-saving measure that would be very helpful in the entire system where it ends. So thank you. Great presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add as well my thanks and just commend the Sound Transit team for finding so many cost-saving strategies. And I really appreciate the emphasis on opportunities to save money without compromising high-quality design and ridership and user experience. So just really appreciate all that work. I also know that the city's ST3 team has been putting in significant staff time to this effort, and we really appreciate the opportunity to partner together to move this project forward. I wanted to ask one question related to the Avalon station. In general, I think eliminating a station isn't something that we should do without very careful consideration. And so I wanted you to speak a little bit more to what we're losing there potentially. Like, who do we expect to use that station? How will they get to or from the light rail if that station is eliminated? Do we have strategies to get those riders to or from Alaska Junction or Delridge stations instead? And then just what would be the process around incorporating community feedback to make sure that we're providing alternative access and addressing community concerns around that. And also just recognizing that, you know, there's kind of like the people who live there now and how they're going to get to the stations. And then, you know, I imagine if we were to build a station there, that's a big opportunity too for transit-oriented development and just recognizing the housing needs of our growing region. Seems like there's also a potential loss there.
So I'm going to let Jason speak to some of the details that you provided here, but I just wanted to thank you and echo what we've done here today would not have been possible without the help from the City of Seattle ST3 team. So I appreciate you mentioning that, and we're happy to have them on our team.
Yeah, I think I can hit all of these in order. So the ridership for the Avalon station was one of the lower ridership stations in West Seattle. About half of that ridership would have arrived by bus. And so we're able to continue those bus routes to serve the Alaska Junction and the Delridge station. There are some trade-offs by not building the Avalon station. Those that live in the neighborhood now and then the potential development that could come up around that station wouldn't be the same without the station. As far as what we're hearing from the community, we've heard a bit, I mean, even in the boardroom today, for people who want to support the station. At the same time, we've heard from people that really want to support an affordable project. And so we can dig into what we've heard and we can share that with board members as well. As far as, I think I covered access with the ridership, and then the TOD potential is the other trade-off there.
I guess just to, so for folks who live right around where the Avalon station would be, can you just speak a little bit more to their access to the other stations?
Yeah, so I think some of those folks would certainly have a longer walk to the station. With the Avalon, Delridge, and Alaska Junction stations, there are some overlapping walk sheds, and there's also good bus connectivity. And as Metro restructures their program to lead up to the West Seattle opening and eventually the other openings, as they always do, we'd be able to connect people with the stations via bus who aren't able to walk or roll to the stations.
Board Member Strauss.
Thank you. Kind of taking the baton from Mayor Wilson here. If we could go to slide 8. It is removing a station is never a comfortable conversation to have. And if we could pull up slide 8 on the screen, that would be helpful. I do want to thank you for not using my 3 least favorite words, minimum operating segment. Colleagues, you have heard me say time and time again, my principles in enterprise are terminus or bust, or if we're phasing, we must go further. So you have met the goal here of terminus or bust by getting us to the West Seattle Junction. With that, I understand we are required to carry a significant amount of contingency funding for our project budgets. I'm really impressed. I'm really grateful for your work of streamlining Sound Transit's design, build, and everything else. CEO Mestis, thank you for all of your leadership, really getting Sound Transit on track. And so this slide right here shows us how much work you've been able to do, how the success of your work. From here, we're about $1 billion still over budget. How much of that is required contingency? Following up with that is, have ST2 projects required a similar amount of contingency? And as the project progresses, I assume that we are relieved of some of the needs for the contingency because we've gotten through threshold on the project. How are those rates adjusted? How will we be able to refine these numbers further?
So as far as contingency, we are carrying right now, the FTA provides guidelines that support grantees as we move into the CIG and FFGA process. provides us with a guideline that tells us we're supposed to carry roughly 30% total project cost at this level of design for West Seattle. If you look at other projects that aren't as far along in the process, that number is different. So for Ballard and Everett, so we are carrying that percentage. So there's roughly 30% total project cost in this number here for contingency. As the project advances, the FTA, as the grantor, there is very specific contingency drawdown requirements that we must follow. And the FTA monitors that for us, and we have done that on all of the ST2 projects. We'll do that on ST3. So there is a contingency drawdown process. I would say that significant contingency drawdown on projects such as this starts occurring at the 50% complete status. And typically not before, unless you can work with the FTA to show them that you have completed and removed significant amounts of risk, which is not unheard of. We can do that. And then the third question, apologies.
Maybe just a little bit more bluntly, is the $1 billion that we're still currently over, is that all contingency, or are there other funding buckets in that $1 billion that we're still over?
If we want to break it down like that, you would subtract 30% of the 4.9 to 5.3 if you wanted to remove all contingency from the project.
And so it sounds like we won't be able to refine that contingency until we're about 50% of the way done with the project. Is that where we're heading right now?
I'm saying FTA guidance shows that is the typical process. There are ways to work outside of that typical process to remove risk with the FTA. And then I would say that I remember what your other point was, the ST2 program. If I'm remembering correctly, it was roughly that 25% contingency that we accumulated across the ST2 program. So I would say this is in line with what we experienced for those projects.
Thanks. And just a reminder to everyone, the UW Husky Stadium project came in under budget and ahead of schedule, right? And so these things are possible. I just want to make sure that we're all understanding that if this project went perfectly, because all projects go perfectly, we would have 30% of this project that we could use for other projects. Granted, I know that that's not reality. So just wanting to really drill in as we continue through this process of how much that additional $1 billion that we're over is putting us out of the financial plan or not. Last question for you today. I will make one statement for the board. My one statement is, I know it's the Ballard link extension with the Midtown station. I'm just going to say, rather than get into the Chinatown ID misnaming of our station and the symphony problem, we should just start calling it the City Hall station. I'll put that out there for now. But my last question for you today, Brad, is when we were on the tour, you were really helpful in me understanding back of the napkin math always says tunneling is more expensive than above ground. And so how are we having a longer tunnel here and it is less expensive for us? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I can take that. So there's a couple of factors here in West Seattle, and one is the property is really expensive and there's built up environment on top of it. So in the FEIS or in the DEIS phase, we were looking at an alternative, just to use a real example, where there was a surface parking lot. And as we were drafting the draft environmental impact statement, somebody built a 6-story building on it. And so suddenly we're looking from, a $10 million acquisition to a $250 million acquisition. So when the price above ground is that high, it makes sense to go underground. One of the other advantages we have here is we're able to optimize the alignment with the tunnel and avoid as long of an alignment as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for all your work and great presentation.
Thank you. Board Member Fain.
Thank you. I propose the King County Admin Building Station name, if I could. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for all of your work, and it is truly impressive. I just wanted to ask a question about if the board did go through with eliminating the Avalon Station, we would have to go back to the FTA, and what would the impact be on the ROD, and what would that mean financially and time-wise?
It's a great question. And We have close coordination with FTA. We met with them yesterday and we talked about the cost saving measures and the early indication. And of course, they need to look at the detail to make a determination. But the early indication is these changes fall within the range of the alternatives we studied in the EIS. And so it would be an administrative process and it would go relatively smoothly. Again, that's just one meeting, but we shared some detail and we would share all of the detail in the future.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, you could call it the station of power or the power station, but that's probably a little too much. We have Board Member Roscoe and then back to Board Member Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff. I benefited in, I think, 2019 from a stakeholder, a resident reaching out to me. So I had not a staff-led tour of the area, but a resident tour of West Seattle. That's been super helpful over these years. I can't remember who it was at the time, but thank you to that individual. I have 3 questions in relation to eliminating the crossover in the tail tracks. As we look at this across the system and as we evaluate it for other stations, I would want to be sure that we're evaluating the long-range impact and cost of operation. Is that something that's a known issue right now or a known, financial impact?
So it's a great point. Removal of tail tracks and crossovers is not equal depending on where you are in the system, what project you're talking about. We have to look at how far away you are from a maintenance facility, how far away you are from pocket tracks. There's a lot that goes into that. One of the things that we are doing to just basically based off of lessons learned is we are running a modeling system as we introduce these changes. And so if we propose to change a location of a crossover or change, eliminate tail tracks, we put it into modeling software that models our entire system and tells us whether or not there is a fatal flaw with that choice. We work very closely with our transit operations partners and our PMO, project management office partners to evaluate that. So short answer is, it does have an impact when you do these things. We are evaluating them and we are not bringing forward anything that degrades our service.
And so I feel like you have inferred that the software system identifies fatal flaws 10 years out, 20 years out as operations and the system expands.
That is correct.
Thank you. Is this a station that has ever been considered to have a parking garage? Is there a parking garage or any parking associated with this station? Whether it's been there and it's deferred or it's just never been there?
None of the stations in the city of Seattle have parking included as part of the project.
Okay. Is there existing parking in this area that's either Seattle parking, private parking, or is it'll just be drop off and bus? Or
there's privately owned retail parking. There's also some community, and I don't quite know the ownership, but there's some nonprofit West Seattle Chamber type of organizations that manage parking in the Alaska Junction, just north of Alaska, very near the station.
All right. I think as we get closer to that, I'll just take it upon myself to understand what those areas plan to capitalize on for paid parking for riders. When you talk about moving the vent and the TPSS into the head house, are there similar stations that currently exist in the system that are designed that way?
I'm going to have to come back to you on the TPSS question. There are other stations and, light rail stations that would have that incorporated into the building. For the vent structure, I guess one of the important points there is because we had the tail track and the crossover south of the station, we're essentially extending the tunnel by 800 feet. And so you need to extend the fire life safety and the ventilation zones. But by bringing the tunnel to the end of the station platform, you are putting the ventilation in that location because that's where it's needed. And that is typical of a station.
I will state that it is typical to put ventilation and TPSS in stations across the nation, across the world. We're using, these are typical things to do for station design.
Okay, and so that opportunity occurs because the crossover and the tail tracks are eliminated? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think the TPSS, it was a location of opportunity. We needed to acquire properties to the south and build into that grade. We had a location to do so. But now that we have the final designer on board and they're really looking to advance the design, they're able to put in the work and the thought to find a more ideal solution.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. So West Seattle Link Extension is like basically shovel ready. And in the public comment, we heard from some of our labor partners about the kind of job creation benefits of moving forward urgently on this project. So I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about the job creation that will come to the region when this project moves forward from final design to construction. So do you have any kind of estimate of the number and types of jobs that will be created? And then kind of as a follow-up to that, if we were to defer moving forward on this project, are there any other ST3 projects that are shovel-ready or nearly so with that kind of potential for job creation? And what's the next earliest that a Link Extension project could move forward and create those jobs? How many years would we be talking about?
So I don't have specific numbers for West Seattle. There are national numbers that are used throughout the, if you think about FHWA, they calculate it in job years, up to 13,000 jobs per $1 billion spent on a project. And that's project specific, but also regionally and the impacts to the economy. We can get back to you on specific job numbers for West Seattle. As far as shovel ready, it is shovel ready. It is the only Link Extension project that has a record of decision and could move into construction. As far as ST3 projects, the one that you heard previous to this, the OMF connection is ready to go. Quite a bit of work going on the STRIDE program that we are working on. But if we defer if West Seattle is deferred, specifically for the city of Seattle, Ballard would be the next project that has construction in the 2028-2029 timeframe right now. And then I don't know the timeframes off the top of my head for Everett and Tacoma, but I think it's roughly similar to Ballard.
I just had a comment. The station, the last station in West Seattle, somewhat similar to the downtown station in Redmond, where there's no parking around there. And I don't recall. We don't have a tunnel, but the parking is really absorbed by the neighborhood and with the bus service and other micro mobility options and everything. So the idea is to not build parking garages necessarily around these stations because the goal is to get people out of their cars and using other modes. So I think if Board Member Roscoe wants to come visit Redmond, we can take a tour of downtown station and you can take a look and see how it kind of integrates into the neighborhood without parking. That's the other question I had, we'll chat after lunch. The other question I had was, one of the things we always talk about, if we delay, we cost more money. So is there a way to speed up this project to get it done sooner? To Board Member Strauss's comment about the Husky Stadium, moving things along. I appreciate the diligence that we go through some of these things. And also at times it does feel like we are taking more time and costing more money. So we'd love to hear about that.
I would say right now we have a fairly optimized schedule for West Seattle. We're moving pretty fast to deliver it. The best thing we could do for West Seattle is just to move it into construction. It's a fairly complex project. has a lot of, in the Duwamish Tide Flats, has a bridge, has a tunnel, has elevated guideway. And so we are always excited to look for ways to optimize and to speed the project up. Getting contractors on board is one of the ways that we can get ideas from the contractors about how to speed these projects up. We're making assumptions right now, but the contractors coming on board can help us do that. We just simply have to move into the next phase to engage that.
Great, thank you. And I see Board Member Mosqueda with your hand up.
Well, thank you, Chair. I recognize I'm not a member of this committee, so I just wanted to hold to the end to see if it's okay to ask a question as well.
Of course, all board members are welcome to join our meetings.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Chair. And I just wanted to echo my appreciation for all of the work that this Sound Transit Board has done, really through the board members' action, authorizing additional analysis, and the creative thinking that has gone into these system in engineering design strategies. That allowed for these cost savings to be conceptualized, and the analysis in front of us is really promising. So I wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank the Sound Transit team, and under the leadership of CEO Constantine, I think really a drive for creative and strategic thinking that drives down costs and still delivers Sound Transit is exactly what we potentially see being able to be actualized in West Seattle. Even with the elimination of the Avalon Station and other reductions that are being contemplated, the design modifications that have just been presented, I think, go a long way towards what the community has been asking for. As folks know, I did not have the chance to serve with you on the Sound Transit Board over the last 4 years. I have been very engaged in conversations with community members, and a lot of what they have asked for is in the presentation that you just saw, both in terms of changing the size and location of the stations to avoid much of the neighborhood impact, specifically around the Jefferson Square or Avalon Station, still delivering reliable, accessible sound transit to West Seattle, and overwhelming support for this approach as we head into our spring deliberations. I just wanted to lift up the vast majority of calls and emails that I've received have asked for continued progress on the proposal, which would not include the Avalon Station. I do know that there's much more analysis needed, obviously many more conversations to have, both with the board and in deep conversation with the community, which I am very committed to doing. But I'm so thankful that we're seeing around a $2.6 million cost savings for the West Seattle Light Rail project, and the ability to talk to community members, not just about sound transit being delivered, but having sound transit complement existing amenities out here, like our small businesses, and the ways that we are complementing the residents by eliminating fewer homes. Obviously, there's a lot more work to do that our community members in North Delbridge would appreciate for some of the small businesses located there. But I know those discussions are ongoing, and so we will continue to engage with the staff on ways that that footprint will potentially impact folks. And if there is an impact, then really trying to figure out how we can help folks earlier. I know that for the 6,200 individuals at the health club, where there has the only swimming pool in North Delbridge, there's a lot of appreciation for the creative thinking that went into that location, specifically for the kiddos and the families and the elders who come to swim there and get lessons, not all of whom are members, and it really is open to the public in terms of swimming lessons there. So my question for the team is really about the next step. As we heard from the public comment, this project has a lot of potential to unlock thousands of good paying jobs. Our partners have shown us that they appreciate the expertise and the due diligence to try to figure out how to deliver this infrastructure to West Seattle. And as we have conversations with members in community and broaden out our discussions to, to Soto and to the North Delbridge area, I wanted folks to have a better understanding of what comes next. Could you walk us through what the next steps are in terms of daylighting this concept to members of the community, and any final design and construction process, and what potentially happens for the community members over the next quarter or so?
Yeah, I can start about this. So, Board Member Mosqueda, thanks for the question. As you know, we're out in community quite frequently. We have been meeting with property owners and business owners in North Delbridge and throughout the West Seattle community to talk about these cost-saving measures over the past year or more. We're committed to continue having those conversations. Following this meeting, we plan to update the project page with some updated information on what these cost-saving measures could look like should they move forward, be moved forward by the board. We're also looking forward to joining you and appreciate the invitation to the April 1st forum in West Seattle. So we'll come out and we'll share a lot of these ideas that we shared here today and go into a little bit more detail even and give members of the community a chance to provide feedback, to ask questions, and we'll be able to take those questions back to the team and share those with everybody who's working on this project.
Great, thank you for that. And Board Member Roscoe.
Thank you, Chair. I was just reminded that I believe it was at ST3 or ST2, but that Seattle does not allow parking at transit stations. So just want to point out that that is something I wasn't actually aware of as a kind of blanket across the system. The reason I asked about the parking was not because I think there should be parking. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something on the diagram because maybe it wasn't being considered as a cost-saving measure to eliminate that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Put that on the record.
Yeah, absolutely. And CO Constantine, did you want to say some words today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a word of thanks to the Capitol team for taking on a really significant project and succeeding so well in this. The Capitol team under Terry, Brad, is building the muscle to be able to just simply do better, to be able to save costs, move faster. And I'm really looking forward to this kind of process being able to be applied to Tacoma and Everett and Ballard and all of our other projects. If we can secure that record of decision, move into final design and be able to then use that, both our internal and external expertise, to wring costs from each of these projects and, to do things like speed them up or make them perform better. We are going to be in a much stronger position than we have been previously. And that's all part of building an agency that is more capable of delivering and operating the system. So thanks to all of you for making that possible.
Yeah, thank you, CEO. We also appreciate your leadership in this. I know it's it's always good to save money. It's a little different when you have to save money to make it work. So we appreciate all of the work that you all are doing. Thank you. With that, there is no executive session today. Is there any other business to come before the committee today? Seeing none, our next System Expansion Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 9th from 1:30 to 4. The meeting will take place in the Ruth Fisher Boardroom as well as virtually via Zoom. The link to join the virtual meeting will be provided on the Sound Transit website and on the meeting agenda. And with that, we are adjourned.